let's talk about Tyrese Haliburton. Last night, Tyrese Haliburton and the Indiana Pacers had a ridiculous comeback victory over the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers were playing without Darius Garland, without Evan Mobley, without DeAndre. I want to say DeAndre Hunter. Is that his name? That they traded for from the Atlanta Hawks this past trade deadline. But either way, I think it's DeAndre Hunter, but I feel like I got that wrong. Let me know in the chat if I got that wrong. But yeah, either way, the Cleveland Cavaliers were up by 20 points in the third quarter-ish, and they were getting a little cocky. You know, Donovan Mitchell was doing his thing. He was dragging the Cleveland Cavaliers through that entire game. The guy had like 45 points. I don't even think he left the floor. It felt like to me he played all 48 minutes. He was just battling and possession after possession after possession, getting hit, getting knocked to the floor, and just getting bucket after bucket after bucket. And, you know, trying his best solo dolo to deliver a victory for the Cleveland Cavaliers. 48 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, a plus 13. That is an insane performance from Donovan Mitchell. But even so, the Indiana Pacers clawed their way back, and it came down to Tyrese Haliburton being at the free throw line, down by 2. And he made 1. No, I lied. Down by 3. He was at the free throw line. Was that because of an intentional foul? I would bet that was because of an intentional foul because there was 12 seconds left. I was watching it, but I don't remember an intentional foul. But 12 seconds left. He's at the free throw line. Misses the second. Gets his own offensive rebound. Dribbles out to the 3-point line and hits a step back game winner. Anyway, it started the conversation among Sixers fans on Twitter and other social media platforms. It started the conversation about Daryl Morey and those rumors back in the day of him turning down a potential Tyrese Haliburton trade from the Sacramento Kings for Ben Simmons. The rumor was the Sacramento has considered packaging Buddy Hield, Tyrese Haliburton, Harrison Barnes, who was a great stretch four at the time, and 2 first-round picks for Ben Simmons, who sucked, was a bum, was a loser, and requested to be traded. Tobias Harris, who was on maybe the worst contract in the history of the NBA at the time. And Matisse Thybulle, who is a defensive back football player and doesn't know how to play basketball. You could have got out of the Ben Simmons debacle. You could have got off of the Tobias Harris contract. You could have got away from Matisse Thybulle. And you could have landed at the time 21-year-old Tyrese Haliburton, who anybody who knew anything about the NBA at the time knew his skill level. The Sacramento Kings at the time were forced to choose between De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton, and they chose De'Aaron Fox. You could have got out of the Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris situation simultaneously and got Tyrese Haliburton at 21 years old and put him next to Tyrese Maxey. But Daryl Morey had a love affair, a borderline psychotic stalking obsession with James Harden. Daryl Morey had a life-size painting of James Harden in the entranceway to his house. This is what happened. And there was a radio interview on 97.5 The Fanatic that I personally witnessed while I was driving my car, where Daryl Morey referred to this trade package as Sixers fans want me to trade him for quote unquote random NBA players. I knew what trade he was referencing. Daryl Morey referred to Tyrese Haliburton as random NBA players because he only knew James Harden. And so anyway, he turned that down, and he ended up trading Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 more first-round picks for James Harden. So you could have got you would have got Tyrese Haliburton, Harrison Barnes, and 2 first-round picks and gotten out of this terrible situation. Instead, you gave up 2 first-round picks to go get 33-year-old James Harden, who had just requested out of his second team in 3 years. Requested out of the Houston Rockets. They said no. He refused to come to training camp. He showed up to training camp overweight. People rumored that he had a fat suit on. Okay? That's a red flag right there. Why would anybody trade for him? The Brooklyn Nets did it. Ended up being one of the worst trades in NBA history because they gave up 5 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps for him. And he requested a trade a year and a half later. And the Brooklyn Nets said no. And guess what he did? He refused to come to training camp again. He showed up overweight. He did the same thing twice in 3 years. The only person left that would trade for James Harden at that time was Daryl Morey. He was the only person crazy enough and obsessed enough with James Harden to do that. Everybody else was like, hell no. We don't want anything to do with that guy. He's not dedicated. He's a known playoff choker. He comes to training camp overweight. He requests trades every 2 years. He shows up in the regular season and disappears in the playoffs. He won't stop partying in Vegas in the middle of playoff series. He got the Houston Rockets flight team to fly at certain times so he could go to his favorite nightclubs. This guy, nobody wanted anything to do with James Harden when he requested out of Brooklyn. And Daryl Morey did it. And guess what? A year and a half later, James Harden requested out of his 3rd team in 4 seasons. And people are going to tell me that James Harden was the correct decision at the time. Yes, he just averaged 25, 10, and 8 on the Brooklyn Nets in 2021 and was 13th on an MVP list. If you want to, he had a good season in 2021. But when Kyrie and Durant got out of there, he said, ship me out too. And then it went downhill. It's not about the numbers. That's the thing. Daryl Morey's the numbers guy. He only looks at numbers. He doesn't look at red flags. He doesn't look at personality traits and dedication and who looks like they really care and who looks like they're going to put in the work and the effort. Because all the red flags were there with James Harden and Paul George. And he signed him to a max contract too. But you can't tell me James Harden was the right choice there. Because guess what? The very next season. First of all, Tyrese Haliburton's rookie season, he averaged 13 points per game on 40% from three-point range and 5.3 assists. Do you know how insane it is for a rookie point guard to average 13, 5 on 40% shooting from 3? The next season, he averaged 15 and 8.2 assists per game. Do you know how just natural facilitating ability a point guard has to average 8 assists per game his second year in the league? And then the Kings traded him. And the very next season, he was an all-star with the Indiana Pacers. At 20 and 10. 20 and 10. At 22 years old. He averaged 20 and 10 at 22 years old. And you could have put him next to Tyrese Maxey and maybe had him run with Tyrese. And don't forget, Joel Embiid's MVP season was 2023. Haliburton averaging 20 and 10. Tyrese Maxey averaged 26.8 that season. That was his first All-Star season. And Joel Embiid's MVP year? But no, you wanted playoff choker. That's what you wanted. Last night, Tyrese Haliburton hits a ridiculous offensive rebound off of a free throw, step back 3 to win the game, and gives the damn big balls celebration. That's what you call a playoff riser. And shout out to Tyrese Haliburton, by the way, because he was voted by NBA players as the most overrated player in the league. And now he's putting teams away in the playoffs. And he's up 2-0 in the Cleveland Cavaliers. People didn't even pick them over the Bucks. I was like, they're beating the Bucks, dude. I had the Cavs over them. I didn't know the Cavs were going to be playing without Darius Garland the whole series. So there's that. But yeah, don't try to tell me that James Harden was the right choice at the time. I think that's ridiculous. Damn, fam, hop off his nuts. Hell no. Pause. Hallie is still overrated. Bro is absolutely cooking in the playoffs. And you're going to say he's still overrated. Unbelievable, man. I think it's hilarious you kids talking about Harden. You wouldn't say this shit to him. He's jacked. What the fuck? Yo! Wow, that might be the biggest Harden stan comment I've ever seen in my life. He's jacked. He wears the freshest clothes, eats at the chillest restaurants. Okay, you're joking. That's a troll. Okay, that's a troll. Never mind.